If you follow this simple approach to nutrition, it will be near impossible to be overweight, and you will reduce your risk of developing loads of different chronic diseases. I'm going to lay out a clear plan, the foods you can eat freely, which ones to limit, and those to eliminate completely, plus when to eat. But first, consider the following. Analysis of the mid-Victorian period in the UK reveals that life expectancy at age 5 was as good or better than exists today, and the incidence of degenerative disease was 10% of ours. There is this idea that the reason we have lots of degenerative and chronic disease is because we live longer, and another idea that we live longer because of modern medicine. And whilst there might be a small bit of truth to both these views, overall I think they are inaccurate, misleading, and used to justify the never-ending stream of pharmaceuticals used in chronic disease management that we're all expected to accept as inevitable. It's our unhealthy lifestyles that drive poor health, with modern processed food front and centre. The vast edifice of 20th century healthcare has not enabled us to live longer, but has, in the main, merely supplied methods of suppressing the symptoms of degenerative diseases which have emerged due to our failure to maintain mid-Victorian nutritional standards. You might imagine the Victorian era being one of slums, horrific working conditions, and a poor diet, leading to huge amounts of death from what should be mild infectious diseases. But the authors of this paper argue that there was a brief period from 1850 to 1880 in England where this trend was bucked enough to allow people to reach old age without the chronic disease rates we see today, primarily due to their good diet. So taking account of this and what we know about modern overly processed foods, we can take a Victorian era approach to nutrition, which I've done by dividing foods up into the following 3 categories. Category 1 foods, the staples of the Victorians, to be used at each meal and eaten freely. These include meat, fish, eggs, cheese, vegetables, including herbs and spices, fruits, legumes, whole grains and nuts. These are all either whole foods or foods minimally processed by simple means such as fermentation. You can add in foods now readily available that fulfill the same criteria, such as yogurt, extra virgin olive oil and cacao nibs. Of course, the Victorians did not use toxic endocrine-disrupting herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, or chemical fertilizers to produce their food, so buy organic as much as you possibly can. Growing food in more nutrient-dense organic soils leads to more nutrient-dense food. You can read the paper for examples of the foods commonly eaten in each category and for details on the seasonality of the various foods. The most available meat cuts were those on the bone and organ meats like liver, heart and kidney. These are conveniently the most micronutrient dense and the cheapest. But you definitely want meat from healthy animals foraging outdoors for their natural diet rather than low quality supermarket animal products. And of course, fish were all wild caught and not farmed. Category 2 foods are treats that should be consumed minimally. Sugar, white flour and alcohol. By consuming minimally, I'm thinking most days without any and only a small amount when eaten. Excess sugar, white flour and alcohol are very easy ways to put on weight and develop insulin resistance. Alcohol was often less strong in the mid-Victorian periods than it is today, and many households were teetotal. And by minimal alcohol intake, I'm thinking 0 to 4 UK units per week or 0 to 2 standard US drinks per week. Since the foods and ingredients in this category are only occasional, you should make sure they are organic. My previous video covered how the insecticides used in non-organic sugar production are extremely damaging to pollinators, including bees. Check that out if you need extra motivation to avoid non-organic sugar. Category 3 foods include modern, highly processed foods not available in the Victorian era that you should eliminate completely. This includes seed oils, such as rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, or vegetable oil, which contain high qualities of degraded and rancid omega-6 fatty acids, which are pro-inflammatory and can displace omega-3 fatty acids in your body, not something you want to be doing. This category also includes modern sweeteners of any kind, be it artificial sweeteners or those labelled as natural. Plus preservatives, flavorings, emulsifiers, E-numbers, basically any ingredient that you wouldn't buy yourself to add to your own cooking, or that sounds like it came out of a lab. This stuff is all total junk, devoid of micronutrients that wrecks human health and the gut microbiome. Don't eat anything that contains any of these as an ingredient. There is no need to count calories with this approach to nutrition. The reason it works is because it severely restricts modern overly processed foods that dysregulate the hormones involved in weight regulation, such as leptin, ghrelin, cortisol, and insulin. If you normalise these hormones, then your weight will normalise automatically. You need to be doing time-restricted eating, limiting the amount of hours you eat during the day so that you get a proper overnight fast each night. Your overnight fast should be 12 hours at minimum. Most people probably would be fine doing longer, for example, a 14-hour fast. In the remaining 10 hours, eat 2 to 3 meals per day and do not snack in between. Your eating window can be shorter if you prefer, but should be centered around daylight hours as much as possible. I hope you find this approach to nutrition useful and the categories helpful. Do let me know what you think in the comments below. If you want all this fleshed out, including the weight regulation hormones at play, a much more comprehensive list of the foods you can eat and the foods to avoid, as well as all the other factors to help you optimize your health, then check out my book, which I've linked in the description. Please do subscribe, and I'll see you next time.